Yo, what's up, music connoisseurs? It's time for another music video. Not a music video, but a video about music, or whatever this is, ostensibly. Thank you for the extremely positive reception of my Greta Van Fleet video. That was a lot of fun to make, and I got a lot of comments telling me I should make more videos specifically about music, so going to go through a little Anthony Fantano phase here and make a couple videos about music. Here's another video about music. This is 10 hipster bands that you should know about.
Guys, tell like 30 minutes, we gotta go.
Now, I'm not a hipster, despite my having dressed up as one for the purposes of this video. It just so happens that I actually did like some stuff before it was cool. No, really, I was into some stuff before it was cool, but that's completely beyond my control, and I don't really fit into the commonly accepted hipster archetype. I don't drink coffee, I don't drink craft beer. Even in Denver, even in the middle of Denver, I don't drink frickin' craft beer. I retain sobriety at all times. Just generally, I think I'm much too averse to irony to really be considered much of a hipster. I don't find much in irony. I'm not much into irony as a concept. I'm much more into, like, sincerity. So, yeah, I wouldn't say I am much of a hipster, but the hipster subculture really is inescapable. It dominated the past 10 years. It's only now, it seems, that we're starting to get out of the hipster phase of humanity, and in time we'll probably become nostalgic for hipsters and see them as kind of the dinosaurs of old, the old guard, the predecessors of what was to come. They walked so that the glorious postmodern 2020s and 2030s could run. They're kind of the fundamental building blocks of the 21st century, but as it stands, they're quickly going out of fashion. So I figured it was worth putting together a fun little list of hipster music that you should check out, or you don't have to check it out if you're not into hipster music. I certainly am not, and this is not the type of music I listen to on a regular or consistent basis, but nonetheless, I am aware of it, and I feel that there aren't enough lists compiling actual hipster music. Hipster music, believe it or not, is a genre unto itself. There is indie rock and there's shoegaze and a lot of other genres that some acts within are classified as hipster music, and there is a lot of overlap between particularly indie rock or indie pop and hipster music. But I think it's high time we canonize hipster music, because it is, believe it or not, a legitimate genre and deserves to be recognized as such. I think it's high time we put the staples of hipster music where they belong, in a kind of hipster rock and roll hall of fame equivalent, like a hipster hall of fame. Now, there are some bands on here that I'm not putting in for obvious reasons. When you look up hipster bands on Google, there are some results that just really don't make any sense. There's Beach House, they're just shoegaze. They never really, neither of the Beach House guys really give me like hipster vibes, just from like photos and publicity stills of them. And I'm also obviously going off how much they look like hipsters in addition to how much they sound like hipsters. I didn't put Ariel Pink on this list. I'm going to make an Ariel Pink video. I'm going to make a video just dunking relentlessly on Ariel Pink, but I want to save my thoughts for that video, so I'm fresh for it. I don't waste them here. I'm not gonna bother with Ariel Pink right now. Get Ariel out of my mind. And of course, I didn't put MGMT on here. I really don't see MGMT as hipsters. I think like MGMT really does sound pretty cutting edge in terms of contemporary pop music. Songs like Electric Feel in particular set out to capture the sound of the Ghostbusters theme song, and I really do think they nailed it. Like, Electric Feel is extremely like consumerist and just like stupid. I think MGMT is a little too ironic even to be considered a hipster band. Like, they 100% know like how fucking stupid and extravagant every song they make is. But I don't know, it just feels kind of wrong putting MGMT on the hipster band list, you know, because like Most of their songs are like decent in terms of contemporary pop, and I wouldn't really consider their music hipster music, but each their own. You might consider MGMT a hipster band. I personally really would not. This is the most hipster band list of all time. I'm trying to get the most hipster band. So no like semi-hipster. We're talking full-on hipster here. Anyway, those were the bands that didn't make the cut. With that said, let's get right into it. Here's 10 hipster bands in no particular order. This isn't a top 10 list. Just 10 hipster bands, a complete selection. Some of these I found on Google lists, some I chose on my own. First off, we have Will Wood. Will Wood, I was introduced to about 9 months ago or so with his Schaefer James collaboration song Ferryman. Holy shit, Will Wood is completely insufferable. He sounds like a carnival funhouse gone awry. There's a weird thing with hipsters where they seem to idolize the 1920s as a decade, not a cool decade like the 80s or the 70s or like, yeah, the 20s. I'm a wear American Gothic style suspenders so I can look like old MacDonald, and I'm a smoke pipe tobacco, and I'm a sit back in my armchair and drink some gin and tonic because I'm a 1920s gentleman. And I just find this kind of attitude really insufferable. I mean, the 20s were a cool decade, don't get me wrong, but like, if you make that your lifestyle, you come off as so fake. Because, like, nobody's nostalgic for the 20s. Everyone who was alive in them pretty much is dead. It's the 2020s now. It's not the 1920s anymore. And that's one of the decades where I just don't get it. Like, why dress up like it's the 20s? It's goofy. Wood's whole aesthetic is just, I'm a cabaret. I'm a fucking circus. I'm on fire. Oh, I'm a fucking freak. It was this fucking obnoxious cover art to Everything Is a Lot. It's just like ugly and grotesque and just like, who wants to look at this? Who wants to listen to this type music? That point in Ferryman where he's like, champagne and cyanide? Like his voice raises like 8 octaves. It's ridiculous. And it's like carnival music, you know? It's like a fucking, you're listening to the world's lamest circus on display. Just a big fun house of shit. Yeah, that's pretty much Will Wood's entire discography summed up. I really can't stand Will Wood, and he represents some of the most hipster music you'll hear, like pure, unfiltered hipster. But at the same time, it's completely awful. Like this music is just terrible. You don't even know what influences he's pulling from half the time because he's just trying to be like a circus. That's every Will Wood song. He's just trying to be the big top, the big freak show of extravagance. And he's trying to appear like really off-kilter and wacky, but it just doesn't. It just fits into this neat, sterile little hipster mold, and there's nothing like original or cool about his music. And not all of what I'm going to say about all these hipster bands is like that. Being a hipster band is not automatically a negative thing. It just means you're a hipster band. You know, you are hipsters and you make music for hipsters. That's not automatically a negative trait. But I feel like in the case of Will Wood, it definitely is. I can't stand any Will Wood songs, and I can't even listen to one all the way through. I've tried like 5, but I can't stand this guy. He's like, what the fuck? Okay, next up we got Modest Mouse. Modest Mouse is a much less abrasive hipster band. This is your standard, generic, tried and true hipster band. They'll never let you down. They're never going to give you up. Everyone, at least I, by everyone I mean I, used to confuse him with Danger Mouse, but Danger Mouse is way cooler and is a way better producer. As far as Modest Mouse goes, they share a lot in common in terms of the musical sensibilities of Will Wood. A Modest Mouse song does sound a lot like a Will Wood song. It's just less exaggerated. It's less abrasive. They're not as deep into that side of degeneracy, that corner of hipster music degeneracy where they try and make it sound like a circus. Even Float On, which has a music video where the visuals are heavily like, 1910s carnival time. It's not as bad as a Lil Wood song. And really, I think like Modest Mouse, you can listen to Float On or whatever. It's not bad music. It's not the type music that I listen to. Personally, I listen to cool shit that fucking bangs. But Modest Mouse, you listen to a Modest Mouse song, you're like, okay, it's modest. It's a Modest Mouse song. It's not extreme, it's not hardcore, but it's not like depressing. You can listen to a Modest Mouse song and feel pretty good and peppy after it, and overall positive experience, I suppose. Alright, next up we have the Spin Doctors. And you might be saying, the Spin Doctors, they predate hipsters, they were around in the early 90s. The Spin Doctors are the origin point of hipsters. They are the beginning of the hipster plague. The Spin Doctors, with their ironic sexism in their song Little Miss Can't Be Wrong, that's where the whole hipster shit started. Look at the lead guy from the Spin Doctors and tell me he doesn't look like every frickin' hipster. He is the OG hipster. And really, I do think the jam band scene, the jam genre of the 90s, is not remembered much by contemporary audiences, but it really is the precursor to hipster music, if you think about it. The really wacky blend of styles and just going for full-on 15-minute songs at their festivals and everything. I feel like the Spin Doctors did kind of create the modern hipster look and feel, kind of down to a T. They really were onto something way before everyone else was. Not Blues Travelers so much, not like other jam bands from that time, but just the Spin Doctors. Just the Spin Doctors in particular. Little Miss Can't Be Wrong, I hate to say it, it's a catchy song, and I find myself listening to it quite often, going back to it. It's fucking annoying, but it's also a fucking earworm, and these guys know how to get inside your head. And I fucking hate Little Miss Can't Be Wrong. It's just this guy who's like, Little Miss fucking idiot, Little Miss stupid over here. Meanwhile, this doofy bozo looks like he can't even screw in a fucking light bulb. He looks about as bright as a frickin' swamp. But, yeah, it's just a misogyny anthem, and I get that he said, oh, it's about my mom, or I don't give a shit. It just comes off like that. Just don't make a song calling women stupid. Hey, there's an idea. But, obviously that really caught on amongst the hipsters, and the hipster subculture is just full of rampant sexism and Nazism and all kinds of shit. Especially with shitheads like Gavin McInnes in the mix. Gag me with a spoon. Let's get fucking rid of Gavin McInnes, okay? Gavin McInnes needs to go in the Gavin McDumpster. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh yeah, Spin Doctors. I guess I'd say, you can listen to a Spin Doctors song and enjoy it, but it's nothing special. Maybe just listen to Little Miss Can't Be Wrong and then just kind of skip to the next thing, because there's not that much to them. They're kind of empty and devoid of thought. They're just kind of a bunch of fucking idiots pouring a bunch of cans of paint on their instruments. And they think that's cool, like Jimi Hendrix lighting his guitar on fire. They think paint is as cool as fire. They're kind of dense. Okay, moving on then, we have Foster the People. I've made 2 entire parodies of Pumped Up Kicks. I called it Souped Up Song. Yeah, Foster the People is just a one-hit wonder novelty act that basically gained national recognition. Just because one of their songs is really fucking edgy and, to be honest, extremely cringe. Is it kind of catchy? Yeah, and if you weren't listening to the lyrics of Pumped Up Kicks, you'd probably just think, ooh, fun. This is a fun song. But the minute you realize that it's about, mass shootings, you're kind of like, hey, this is kind of in bad taste. And maybe back when, Pumped Up Kicks came out, maybe it wasn't seen as in such bad taste, because the whole thing was kind of new, of just, making a a really like cringe novelty hit to propel your hipster band to immediate success. But you know, in hindsight, in retrospect, given the decade of gun control legislation and everything that's gone on since Pumped Up Kicks came out, I think it's pretty clear that it's in very, very poor taste. One of the guys from it is like, oh, I was a cousin of one of the students at Columbine. And it's like, that's great. Don't make it into your hipster novelty song, okay? And if you're going to make a song about such dark subject matter, don't make it sound fun. Make it sound sad. You know, make it match the mood of whatever you're covering. Because then you come off as, like, genuine, you know, instead of just like, da 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 da. You couldn't get this song off the radio back in the day. It was just everywhere. It was just like, yeah, pumped up kicks, oh shit, yeah, pumped up kicks. And it got really annoying. And it's one of those songs where you just hear it so many times, it's like, what the fuck? I don't have anything else to say about Foster the People's fucking discography. I don't frickin' know. It's like, what more is there to say about them? They're the band that exploits mass tragedies for personal gain. I see nothing wrong with, like, commentary on such things. But if we're going to, like, shit on Monkey Jones, one of YouTube's greatest comedians who was way funnier than Filthy Frank in, like, nearly every regard, what the fuck are we still doing propping up Foster the People and going, oh, what a brilliant band, you know? Monkey Jones' video is funnier than this fucking Pumped Up Kick shit, because Monkey Jones is actually a talented comedian who has, like, some decent production value. And this Pumped Up Kick shit is so watery in the intro. It's like, what is that? What is that early 2010s, like, frickin' ocean filter? In the beginning, it sounds like the song's like emerges out of a swimming pool. Anyway, yeah, just really poor taste, poor execution in general. Like, I don't mind shit about, you know, like school shootings, mass shootings, whatever. Just don't make it fucking lame and don't make it hipster shit and, like, make something worthwhile out of it, you know? I don't think Pumped Up Kicks qualifies. It's a really lame song, and they are absolutely a one-hit wonder. They like, you don't listen to any songs be honest, you don't listen to anything except Pumped Up Kicks. They're a one-hit wonder, okay? Yeah, anyway, moving on. Okay, now we got King Giz. I talked about King Giz in the last one, in my Greta Van Fleet video, where I compared the extremely genuine, awesome, really cool songs of Greta Van Fleet that are totally some of the most epic rock and roll of the 21st century to the really shitty TikTok filter infused poser try-hard disingenuous psych rock shit of King Gizzard, who are a bunch of Australians who all fancy themselves a bit of a hippie revival type thing. And now obviously King Giz wasn't on any of the hipster band lists that I looked at, but yeah, they're 100% a hipster band. I don't know how you could look at a photo of the King Giz boys all in an ensemble and go, yeah, these guys aren't hipsters. Like, they 100% are. It's the most try-hard, cringe shit. In terms of sounding like retro stuff, King Giz fails on that front. They fail on delivering interesting concepts with their psych rock. They rely way too heavily on gimmicks and shit. And overall, they just come off as extremely try-hard. They're trying way too hard to appear wacky and out there and crazy. I mean, if there's a rock fan who likes King Giz, that's a good sign that, like, the downfall of rock is upon us. Because, like, seriously, none of their songs are good. They're full of filters and shit, and they just sound awful. Like, who listens to this type music? It's actual ass. The fact that King Giz gets propped up as, like, the best psych rock of the modern age really bewilders me. If you want to hear more of my thoughts on King Giz, go ahead and watch my Greta Van Fleet video, because I kind of go into them there. But yeah, King Gizzard is just, like, terrible. Terrible in capturing retro sound, terrible at making music, terrible at coming off as genuine They clearly have no idea what they're doing, and they're on a headlong collision course with irrelevancy in about like 5 years. I can just see it. People will get sick of this shtick eventually. Alright, next up we got Tally Hall. Tally Hall. You might be saying, Nick, Tally Hall isn't a hipster band, they're a Fablu band, they're a wonky band. No, Fablu is just hipster. It's just, let's mash together a bunch of crazy sounds and toss them into the food processor and regurgitate them up as something crazy new. Tally Hall is actually one of the first internet bands I was introduced to, as I assume is the case for a lot of people who initially stumble onto the internet, think, wow, I found Banana Man, this is a hidden treasure. But as the years have gone on and I've grown more mature, I've realized that Tally Hall really isn't as versatile as they brand themselves, and a lot of their songs, in retrospect, are actually really fucking boring. In fact, the entirety of their second album, Good and Evil, is shit. There's nothing there. The first album's kind of fun, because they kind of have a fun time with it, but then with Good and Evil, they're just like... And I don't get, like, who'd listen to Good and Evil all the way through. Most people probably haven't. Heck, most people probably don't even know it exists. Personally, I like bands that last for more than 2 albums, but Tally Hall's story is one of such immense dysfunction that it's like practically a Greek tragedy. Entire hour-long videos have been made about how these 5 innocuous white suburbanites just couldn't stand each other. Now, one of the guys, what's his name, frickin' Joe Hawley, has been like accused of being a pervert or something. Yeah, about what I'd expect for a band that's like this, or it's just a bunch like 5 white guys from the middle of suburbia who aren't introduced to a real society or like a larger urban landscape. They just kind of grow up in a cul-de-sac and they think, oh wow, I can do hip-hop, I can do folk, I can do every genre at once, and they form this quirky little band and they wear 5 colorful ties, and then they're like, I'd like to say hello and Day is a pretty good song. Ruler of Everything is pretty good. Turn the Lights Off is okay. It's all hipster music, but they do have their hits. I can't really deny that. Good Day is a fun song to listen to. And more than that, I think what Tally Hall achieves that very few bands do is that they are really quite possibly the most late 2000s band in existence. You can listen to a Tally Hall song and that's just like, yes, this is the late 2000s. This is the age of the birth of YouTube, the early YouTube years, the late MySpace era, the rise of Facebook, really. It just captures a point in time so perfectly, Tally Hall does. They really do. They don't even intend that, but just because they are 5 suburbanites who have no idea what they're doing, they're kind of just pulled into fame on a whim. They really do capture a certain point in time, and that is like a useful thing. I feel like internet archaeologists should listen to Tally Hall, because that is just the sound of the time. It's just like, yeah, ruler of everything. That was a specific point in time that we don't have anymore. That doesn't exist. Like Marvin's Marvelous Mechanical Museum, that would not exist today. We would not get that today. Moving on, we got the Antlers. The Antlers is boring as fuck. I can't stand the Antlers. The main vocalist sounds like he's always asleep. He sounds like a drunk Paul Bunyan. Yeah, the Antlers is one of those contemporary type rock bands that I just go, wow, this is the face of rock today. No wonder rock is dying. No wonder people are switching on hip-hop instead. The Antlers is an extreme snooze fest to the max, and they have an entire album about just some guy who works at a hospice clinic where his whole job is to just watch people die. But Dr. Sleep, this ain't a captivating narrative. Since when are rock albums about fucking hospice clinics? Remember when The Who made an album about a fucking hospice clinic the world's most exciting setting. It's so fun. Remember when rock was fun? Remember when rock albums weren't about just watching people die? Because it's kind of like a sad downer. You know, it's not exactly what people want to listen to with rock and roll. Well, the Antlers don't give a shit. They're gonna channel their fucking trauma into their rock music. The same way Foster the People made Pumped Up Kicks. But whereas at the very least Pumped Up Kicks sounded fun, Antlers songs about tragic events and sad shit doesn't even sound fun. It just sounds like ass, and it just sounds like a guy just falling asleep on construction equipment. The Antlers is boring as fuck, but it's a good example of why rock is dying. If you're wondering why rock is dying, the Antlers is a great case to point to. Like, yeah, I can see why people don't listen to rock anymore. The Antlers are basically the Nickelback of hipster music. Alright, next up we got Portugal The Man. Yeah, Portugal The Man. Portugal The Man is a lot like Foster the People in that they're also a one-hit wonder. However, unlike Foster the People, where the one-hit wonder is an ass song, Feel It Still is actually a banger. It actually slaps. It's that rare convergence of hipster music where I go like, yeah, I enjoy listening to this. I feel like the retro flavor, the kind of retro style, is actually kind of fun. It doesn't work, don't get me wrong. It doesn't sound like he's been kicking it since 1966 or whatever. It does sound extremely 2010s, but it sounds 2010s in a fun way, and I like the interpolation of Please Mr. Postman, even if Please Mr. Postman is a way better song, and it is kind of sad to see a group of 3 black women upstaged by a white hipster guy dancing around in a white smock, I guess is what he's wearing in the music video. But the music video is fun. I do like the old guys on the motorcycles, and it's snowing in the junkyard. There's the fucking, like, sci-fi baby mask thing. It's fun. It's a fun music video. And I feel like Portugal The Man captures what a lot of hipster bands fail to, which is that, like, hipster music, if it's trying to be retro, you know, it should try to be fun. Portugal The Man is fun, and Feel It Still is kind of a banger. I mean, it's one of those songs where you can only listen to it like twice before it gets like stale, and you kind of have to give it a break. But I found myself listening to Feel It Still on occasion. It's not one of my favorite songs or anything. Please Mr. Postman is like echelons above it, but I do think it's a little dismissive to just accuse them of being plagiarists or anything, because Feel It Still is a very different song with its percussion, instrumental, lyrical capacity, and I like the "Ooh, I'm a rebel just for kicks now." It's a fun song. It is, and I can't say I hate it. So I haven't listened to any of their other songs, and I'm sure all their other songs are probably boring ass, as is the case with a lot of one-hit wonders. But at least, unlike Foster the People, I don't look at Portugal the Man and go, yeah, these guys just all fucking suck, and they're total scumbags, the lowest level of humanity, the depths of depravity. Feel It Still isn't like, it's not about like the Oklahoma City bombing or something. Like, that's stupid. It's just a fun little ditty that got used in like car commercials and froyo commercials for about 3 years and then disappeared off the charts, and you know, for what it's worth, fun song. So yeah. Alright, just a few more here. We got Neutral Milk Hotel. Gosh, what is there to say about Neutral Milk Hotel that hasn't already been said? Neutral Milk Hotel is a formative hipster band. They invented a lot of the hipster aesthetic from the ground up, and it makes sense that a lot of modern hipsters have gravitated towards them. They are sort of the forefathers. I can't fucking stand Neutral Milk Hotel. I think they're overrated to hell, and I think much like American Psycho, their popularity online is mostly just a meme, because much like American Psycho, In the Airplane Over the Sea is boring as fuck and is a pain to get through. I can't stand Neutral Milk Hotel. What is it about Neutral Milk Hotel that's captivated so many people? I think it's the lore of it. They're like, we made an album about Anne Frank and how I wish Anne Frank hadn't died. A bit like how Foster the People made a song about a school shooting. You see a common thread with these hipsters where they're kind of insensitive and they kind of just think they can take these horrible tragedies and just make them into the week's biggest pop hit. But in the case of Neutral Milk Hotel, they didn't even get that lucky because their album was completely obscure until the internet got its greasy little paws all over it. And 4chan was like, yeah, this is amazing, even though it's not, and there are a million other albums that sound just like it. Hey, here's an idea, Neutral Milk Hotel. Maybe just let Anne Frank's memory live on and don't make it into your hipster country album with a photo of a lady with a tambourine for a face on the front. Or is it supposed to be like a slice of a pear or something? You know, maybe don't do that. Maybe think things through a bit before you like make an entire ass album about Anne Frank, despite you just being like a bunch of southern white guys. In the South, they don't exactly have the tact to recognize that that's not really the subject material to make a whole ass album about. And put all these like fun little cryptic references in and go like, ooh, it's the lore. Not a fun album. And I mean, it's not fun because it's sad. It's not really like a sad album. It's just like really fucking boring. To listen to it is pure pain. It's like, what are you listening to this for? Other than like as an exercise in futility. It's mind-boggling. It's truly mind-boggling that people enjoy this music, but such are the wonders of the internet, I suppose. People can enjoy Neutral Milk Hotel, and just the other day I was at my local record shop and I see like 50 fucking fresh shrink-wrapped copies of this shit right off the assembly line, and I go, wow, you know, the internet just keeps this shit coming out. You don't even have to find it in an obscure rack anymore. Just right there on the front shelf, right up there with the repressings of fucking Nevermind and freaking Enter the 36 Chambers, right next to those. Just, yeah, we got this fucking aeroplane shit, this rando garbage that the internet just pretends to like for whatever reason. Yeah, Neutral Milk Hotel is ass. I don't get it. What the fuck? Okay, finally, we have a hipster band that I put on the list. This wasn't on any of the hipster band lists, even though you'd think it would be. That's right, I'm talking about She and Him, Zooey Deschanel's side project, guitarist, I believe that's his name, and this is kind of the ultimate hipster group. Obviously, Zooey Deschanel is a hipster icon. I've made more memes about her than I can count. I find her career particularly fascinating, because there was a point in the early 2010s where people just couldn't get enough of this quirky, naive, 20-something white girl going about engaging in bumbling misadventures, and these days something like that would obviously be like box office poison, and nobody would be interested in a Zooey Deschanel movie if it came out these days. 500 Days of Summer and the like, pretty much every Zooey Deschanel comedy where she plays this wacky, eccentric, quirky girl living in the big city and having the big dreams. They're fascinating movies because movies like that just don't exist anymore. They've just stopped. But for what it's worth, I can't say I really like any of Zooey Deschanel's movies. What I do like, however, surprise plot twist, is She and Him. I actually really like She and Him, and I think, for what it's worth, She and Him is quite possibly my absolute favorite hipster band. I would actually unironically recommend listening to She and Him. Not necessarily because it's good music, but because it's interesting music. Popping on She and Him for the first time is kind of like popping on like Stereolab for the first time. I know that might sound ludicrous, like obviously something like Dots and Loops is way better than She and Him. It has a way better production value and way more experimentation, way more cool shit. But what I'm saying is that like listening to a She and Him album all the way through really is like an experience like no other. The day I found out Zooey Deschanel had a fucking song project, I was like, sure, I'll listen to the She and Him album all the way through. And then I just popped it on. Next thing I knew, it was over. And then I was like, I'm going to listen to the second one. And it was also pretty decent. Zooey Deschanel and Jay really do kind of capture this quirky, doo-woppy type style. If you think Meghan Trainor is bad at like a doo-wop revival sound, She and Him fucking nails it out of the fucking park without beyond the shadow of a doubt. Like Sentimental Heart, Don't Look Back is like great. Don't Look Back is like actually a fucking cool song with some really cool choices made. It doesn't sound like the era it's trying to capture, obviously, with its music video and everything, but it is a fun song. She and Him does try for a retro sound. Zooey Deschanel obviously trying to recapture this kind of retro energy in everything she did, up to and including New Girl, which the theme song and whole vibe of that is basically just a regurgitation of that girl with Marla Damas from the 1960s. But overall, I do think She and Him is legitimately a duet worth checking out, because Zooey Deschanel is actually surprisingly a pretty decent vocalist. Her movies suck, don't get me wrong. Like, there's not a single Zooey Deschanel movie I can watch where I go, yeah, this is great. But I feel like in a limited capacity, just in music, I think that's where Zooey Deschanel is actually like at her peak, because she actually does like try and capture these vibes, and she really does nail it. This is like the ultimate fucking hipster music. And like the covers they do, there's a whole album that's just like covers of older songs, and there's Stay a While, which is basically Dusty Springfield. And it does sound like Dusty Springfield. It's actually kind of crazy. It's actually kind of good, as it were. So yeah, I would actually recommend listening to She and Him. It's not particularly enjoyable music, but you will have an experience with it, the same you would if you listened to a Tally Hall album all the way through. And I would argue She and Him is better than Tally Hall, and pretty much better than all the other hipster bands on this list. But She and Him is like really fucking underrated for whatever reason. Nobody ever talks about She and Him. Nobody even knows Zooey Deschanel sings. Most people don't even know who Zooey Deschanel is anymore. Their career is like only 10 years stale at this point. But yeah, really interesting career she had, and her side music project is actually like pretty freaking cool. It's actually like pretty interesting. So of all the hipster bands here, I'd say She and Him is my favorite, and I would actually recommend, if not the entire first She and Him album, just listen to a few. Just listen to the singles. Check them out, see if they're your bag, and if they are, then there isn't too much hipster music that's that good, but She and Him actually is kind of decent. So yeah. Anyway, that's my list of kind of the definitive hipster canon, the definitive 10 definitive hipster bands there. I know I've forgotten some, I've left some off here. There are quite a few that kind of fly under the radar, because if nothing else, hipster music is immediately disposable, and it's extremely easy to just forget a hipster band the second after you turn it off, because it's just like there's nothing substance to it. It's very ironic, Pabst-infused vibes. You know, it's just extremely ironic, self-aware trash. Hipster music is the landfill of music. But yeah, those are my thoughts. Anywho, this isn't a complete list by any means, but those are just some that I think are interesting to bring up as both positive and negative examples of hipster music in the modern context. What are some of your fave hipster bands? Do you like hipster music? Let me know down in the comments below. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know what you think about hipsterism. I don't really get hipsterism. It did have a pretty prominent outgrowth here in Denver. I know that for sure, and I am fascinated by hipsters as a subculture. Although, you know, as a third-party neutral observer, kind of studying them like a wildlife expert, not as a direct participant. I certainly have a better taste than that. I'll actually give you a recommendation here at the end of the video. Go watch Hipster Shore.
No. I am not a hipster.
It's a charming little web series that I really like because it explains in great detail the intricacies of the hipster lifestyle. It may very well be the most accurate portrayal of hipsters ever created, and it features Heidi Gardner, who's a hilarious comedian. Prior to her stint on SNL, she was in the interesting little comedy bunch Family Sandwich, and their series Hipster Shore is a real delight to watch. It's an internet classic, if you would, just in terms of production value, joke composition. Everything about Hipster Shore is extremely charming, and I think for the younger ones in the audience who aren't exactly privy to the heyday of hipsters, Hipster Shore is a nice little history lesson and refresher. Anyway, that's all I have to say for this video. Until next time, sayonara, suckers. Ironically,